Congratulations. You did a wonderful job in this.
Thank you.
Wow. And I want to ask you first off, what did you, were the Krays kind of on your radar, or did you know a lot about them?
No, I really didn't know very much about them at all. I'd heard of them kind of vaguely, but they're obviously a huge deal in the UK and everyone kind of knows about them there, but in Australia where I grew up, the myth wasn't quite as prevalent,
Did you start to do a lot of research when you found out you were going to be playing Frances?
Yeah, I did, but I was kind of careful about it because I think there are so many stories out there about them, and I'm sure some of them are true, and I'm sure some of them are absolute rubbish, and it was kind of, I didn't want to sort of get bogged down with all of that different kind of conflicting information, so it was more about talking to Brian about it really, and he'd kind of picked the parts of the story that he wanted to use, and I was just sort of, I trusted him enough to kind of go along with his version of the story. What
do you think it was that she was so attracted to the bad boy, knowing that he was the bad boy?
Yeah, I think, she says at the beginning of the film that when she's on her first date with Reggie, she says, I'll do anything to get out of the East End. I don't just want to, push a pram and be haggling with the butcher. She doesn't want to be a housewife, essentially. And I think when she first meets him, she sees something sort of glamorous and exciting about him, and she feels like maybe he'll be her escape from that world. And then obviously, I think she kind of turns a blind eye to the darker side of his personality at first, and then obviously she can't ignore it forever, and that's what tears them apart in the end.
Very tragic, for sure. Okay, let's just talk about Tom Hardy. My goodness, I mean, how did this man pull this off? What was...
I have no idea. I have no idea how he pulled it off. I think he did an excellent job, but I don't think I could even begin to do something like what he did in this film. It was really impressive.
Okay, well, let's talk about, first off, you acting opposite Tom as Reggie.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about that.
That clicked into place a lot quicker for me. It was a lot more, I knew what the formula was with our relationship a bit more. That was easy and kind of natural for me, and it made sense to me. Their storyline was sort of a bit more, I kind of knew exactly how to approach that relationship. Frances's relationship with Ron was a different story completely. I actually think that they're more, they're very, very different personalities, but they have a little more in common than Frances does with Reggie, because they're both operating on another kind of level of consciousness. They're both like a little bit spacey and a little bit out there. And acting opposite Tom as Ron was a little more difficult to figure out. I kind of had to be on my toes a little bit more. He would ad-lib a lot, and it was fun, actually. It was probably even more fun acting with him as Ron, just because I never knew what was going to happen.
See, that's really interesting that you say that, because as I'm watching the film, my first question to Tom Hardy is going to be, who is more fun or more challenging, Ron or Reggie? And as an audience, you're watching and I think, Reggie's probably so easy, but I think that Ron was probably very difficult for him. And interesting that you say that.
Yeah.
What made it... To me, it's like working with two different actors completely.
Yeah,
tell me about that process for you, because I'm sure you've never done that before. Have you ever worked with an actor who's playing two?
No, I haven't, and I think you completely hit the nail on the head. It's, a few people have asked me if it was really challenging for me and if it was confusing, but honestly, he did such a good job of clearly defining each of these characters that, we shot in a weird way. Obviously, we would shoot with him as Reggie and then shoot with him as Ron. So technically it was a bit strange, but other than that, it was like working with two different actors, so it was kind of, it wasn't too complicated for me.
Tell me a little bit about even you standing by as an actor watching that fight scene. What was that like?
That was very intense. It was Tom fighting with Jacob, who's his stunt double, but who also would play whatever role Tom wasn't playing at the time. And Jacob was so much a part of the film that watching the film the first time, it was actually like, oh, where's Jacob? Why isn't he in it? Which was kind of bizarre, because he was such an important person on set. So really, it was them fighting, and Tom was Reggie first, and then he switched into Ron, and Jacob would play whoever he wasn't playing. But really, it was a brutal fight. Like, they were really, really going for it.
Yeah, you obviously get a ton of scripts. You've done so much great stuff and everything. But when you got this one, what was it about it that you thought, wow, I just got to do this?
It's difficult for me to sort of express verbally because it's so much about gut instinct. I just thought it was an incredibly, it's a cool script and it's a really interesting script, but I think that Frances was a really beautifully written character. And it was just that gut feeling of I want to bring this person to life. I don't know what it is, but I just want to be a part of this. And also, obviously, Tom was attached at that point, and that was a big draw for me because I've been a big fan of his for a long time.
Yeah, tell me just a little bit about, saying being a fan of his. His movies are, every movie he does, he just steps it up with each. I don't know how he's going to top this. Well, what are some films of his that you've enjoyed watching, and why do you think he's such a great actor?
Well, I stupidly actually watched Locke the night before we started shooting, and I watched it. I went to see it at the cinema with a friend, and I was like, oh no, I don't know how I'm going to be able to sort of keep up with this person because he's just so engaging. Bronson as well is like one of my favorite films anyway, but I don't know what makes him so good. I think part of it is just, a lot of it is just God-given talent, but I think part of it is the fact that he really cares about what he's doing, and he never phones it in, and he just wants the work to be really good. And it's so nice being around that energy when you're making a film because it makes you up your game.
Yeah. Is it a daunting experience or even more pressure when you play somebody who really lived?
Yeah, I think it is definitely. I think maybe there was slightly less pressure on me just because Frances is an even more mysterious figure than the Krays are. There's a lot less information out there about her. So I didn't have this strong idea of her in my head. I was able to kind of find bits and pieces and figure it out with Brian and then kind of create my own version of her. But definitely, like I said, Brian said that this is his fairy tale version of the story, and we can't really know what actually transpired and what was true. And I don't know what she was like in real life, but I do hope that I was able to kind of do her justice and sort of capture her spirit to some degree.
Oh, you did. My heart went out to you, like seriously. And I have to say, Emily, you got to wear some really great costumes, awesome. Tell me a little bit about the clothing, because a lot of people or girls can pull that off. You look like you were just in that mode.
Thank you. Yeah, I love. The 60s is one of my favorite eras for fashion, so that was kind of a dream for me. That was really lovely, and also Caroline, our costume designer, was incredible. She has such an amazing eye, and she had really great tailors, so everything was just kind of perfectly fitted, and it was great. It was a nice that was a really enjoyable, sort of light, fun part of making the film. It was a nice balance to sort of the dark subject matter of the story.
Yeah, I was going to ask, when you're on a set like that and you've got such an intense actor playing against you, is there time for levity off the set?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I was really glad to find out that Tom's not a method actor. He was sort of joking around as Ron in between takes, but it's very different to say someone who's entirely in character the whole time. That's not me at all. I think I would lose my mind if I tried to stay in character. So it's nice to be able to sort of have jokes in between takes, and it was a really easy cast and crew, and I feel like it was really fun to make the film. And even when we were working on these really dark scenes, we had a really good time.
Good stuff. And then Brian, why was he the right guy to direct this film?
He's just an angel for starters, but I think he wrote such an incredible script, and I always feel more comfortable being directed by someone who's written the script that I love, because I know that it's his vision on the page that attracted me to the story. So to know that it's not going to change too much from that is very comforting. I trusted him with the story because he wrote the story.
Yeah. So what's next? What are we going to see from you next?
I'm not sure yet. I'm kind of trying to be patient, I guess, and just looking for I loved making this film so much, and I want to make sure that the next thing I do is something that I care about this much. So.
Well, you were absolutely wonderful in this,
Thank
and
you.
I know you're going to get lots more scripts. So congratulations to you, and always a pleasure to talk to you,
Thanks
Emily.
very
Thank you so much.
Thanks.